Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Telerik Professional Services webinar today. We really just want to help you understand our offerings today and how we can help your business grow. So our agenda today is to go over the professional services options that we offer, go over how the actual process works of how we can get you set up and ready to go with our professional services team. And then we're going to hear from one of our customers, and then we'll go over everything and answer any questions you may have. So to start things off, we're just going to talk about the different offerings that we have. So first off here, we have customized training. Customized training can be either on-site or remote. It's great for a bigger group of people. We can hold up to 15 in a training, and it can be anything from 1 day to 5 days on-site or remote. We customize these trainings to meet your requirements. So say for Test Studio, for example, one of our tools, you want to focus on the sample agenda, which takes about 2 or 3 days, but you want to add in something extra there like covering disaster recovery. We can add that into the training, focus more on one thing than the other, whatever it is to meet your needs. So like I mentioned, we do have suggested agendas to help you determine what you want to cover in those trainings, and then you can add anything additional in there. We can cover any Telerik or Progress technologies in the trainings, as well as any complementary technologies. So if you want to add in something like Vue or React and spend some time on that, as well as our Kendo tools, we can cover anything that's necessary in these trainings. We then also offer mentoring, which is sort of like a training, but a little bit different, where you're side-by-side peer programming with one of our mentors and really just getting into the weeds of everything. So you can screen share, you can meet on demand and really get to interact with one of our consultants. So this is great for customers who have been with us for a bit of time. You're running into issues. You need to get through something in particular in your project and you just can't do it yourself. Support, it's past the capacity of support, so they send it on over to our professional services team to find someone to help you. So it is a very hands-on training, as I mentioned. You'll be able to work with someone directly. You'll have direct contact with them. You can meet via WebEx, GoToMeeting, Skype, whatever is the best option for you. We also offer mentoring if you want to shoot off best practices for someone or make sure your development is going in the right direction, getting validation for those approaches. So that's definitely something where you can just get started with us and try and understand what we do have to offer. So we do offer this in a minimum of 10 hours, and it's a great way to get started with our team and understand how the professional services team works. Modernization is something else that we do very often. So migrating from legacy frameworks such as VB6 or Silverlight or something that's an aged technology, and you want to move to something maybe that's HTML5, or you may want to jump to Angular. Whatever it is that you want to move your system into, we're happy to help there. That includes moving from desktop to web or web to mobile. We're willing to help you jump into that next level. And try and make your app look more modern and better for your customers. So any app redesign or any performance enhancements that we can offer by doing a modernization, we're happy to. We also can use any open edge projects that you may have from our Progress side. We can help modernize an open edge app as well with our Kendo tools. So customizations, a lot of our customers will come to us and they'll be using one of our widgets, but they just want it to work a little bit differently. So one example I have is we had a customer last year using our grid. They were a larger television company, and they were using it for their on-demand guide. And they just wanted to make some tweaks to it in order to make it work for their needs. So we came in, we reconfigured that widget, and now it works great for their tools. They've been a happy customer for about a year and a half since we've done that project. So if you want to send something over to us that's just a minor customization, something that you want to change a little bit, our team does the heavy lifting on that. We'll take over that project, get it set up as quickly as possible, and return that back to you and get things working. If there is a need for ongoing support when we do a customization, if we have an update to one of our products and it affects the customization, we can come in and help you fix that again. Or, if you want to learn how to do something on your own, we can do that as well and help you there. So staff augmentation. This is when you need someone on your team for a long period of time. We become one with your team. So we have a consultant or consultants join your team for an extended period of time. And this really just helps with avoiding adding permanent headcount for specific projects. So say that you want to create a mobile app from your web app. You don't want to hire a mobile developer full time just for this one project. So we can come onto your team for this one project, get everything done, and then if you need any ongoing support or anything like that, we'll still be here. You might also have a project where you need a specific skill set and you don't really have anyone on your team that has that skill set. So we can come in for that one project and help you get to that next level. Again, this is for an extended project, something where we're going to be on the team for a long time. UX and UI. So you may want to update or optimize the look and feel of your website or your mobile app or your desktop app. And again, this is where a particular skill might be needed. So you might not have a UX UI designer on your team long term. So you just want to bring someone in to update this app and get it to the next level, and then we can help you do that, and you can have an updated look and feel, something that looks great. And like I said, you might not need a full-time UX UI dev or designer for this project only, so you can just hire a consultant for a short period of time. Code review. So this is where we'd go in and review the actual code that you have and see if there's any bumps in the road, any issues that you have, any way that we can enhance the performance of the app. So we have a customer right now, they just want there's some lag in parts of their application. So we went in, reviewed the code, we write down all of our issues that we're having and identify those, and then we'll come up with suggestions and a plan for improvements. If you want to have us actually execute on those improvements or suggestions, we can do that, or we can just provide you the updates that you have. For business analysis, if you're not really sure where to start and you want us to help you build out some storyboards or some ideas of where your app can go. So again, I'll use the example. Say you want to go from a web app to a mobile app. You might not know the best place to start, how to think about building that out, where to go. So we can come in, we can build out these storyboards for you, work alongside your team, come up with a great plan, and execute on that project, or just help you start it out if need be. So whereas the code analysis is sort of on the back end, the code review, the business analysis is more on the front end and coming up with the ideas. So how it all works. What we do is you'll set up an initial conversation with my team. So we do have a couple questions right after this slide that will be coming up, where we'll be asking you if you're interested and if we can contact you. So that would be the easiest way to set up an initial conversation, or if you just reach out to our sales team, they'll be happy to put you in touch with my team. After that initial conversation, I'll speak with the consultants. We can determine the scope of the projects. So we do work with some outsourced partners, some very close to us. A lot of them have been Telerik employees in the past or have been with our team for a long time. So I'll determine who the best partner would be for the project, and then we can come up with a scope or a plan. So sometimes, we just start with 40 hours or 80 hours and just dive right in. Some of our customers prefer to do just that. whereas some like to know a scope and how long the project will take. So we'll do that. Then we'll agree on those deliverables and the timeline. So say you have a project that's 100 hours and it needs to be completed in 2 weeks, we can put 3 developers on that project and get that to you as soon as possible. Once we've agreed on the deliverables and timeline, we do have a bit of paperwork, either a letter of engagement or an SOW MSA, depending on the project. We'll get that paperwork out of the way, assign a consultant, and then we can get started on the project. There will be some ongoing support if needed, and we're happy to be here for anything that you need. Any bug fixes, any questions, anything like that, our team is here to help you. So as I mentioned, we do have a couple of questions for you. So I will introduce my colleague Stefan. He's the director of our sales team here at Telerik, and he's just going to have a couple questions for you if you want to talk in a little bit more detail about your professional services projects.
Thanks, Julie, and hello, everyone. First of all, before we actually get into the questions, we appreciate everyone's questions. Thank you so much for sending those. Feel free to send any others along the way. We have a dedicated slot at the end for Q&A, and we'll be addressing those. I think for now, we just wanted to get an overall awareness if you have an ongoing or an upcoming project for which you might need professional services help with. Given what you've heard so far from Julie, we would love your feedback on this one. So we'll give it 5-10 seconds for people to kind of look at the questions, answer quickly, and then we'll move to another one, and then we'll go straight to hearing from one of our customers on their experience working with our professional services team. And the other question is if you would like to set up a quick call with our professional services team, Julie and or myself, to discuss a potential future project in the future, please indicate with a quick yes or no, and we'll contact you after the webinar.
Perfect. Thank you, Stefan. And thank you for all of you who answered those questions for us. So as Stefan mentioned, we do have a customer that we spoke to and really wanted you to get a sense for what our team offers and how we can help you. So this customer, U Group Media, you may not have heard of their company name before, but if any of you are parents or have any nieces or nephews or anything, you may have seen their product before. It's called PNP, Portable North Pole. So it's a downloadable app where children or parents can set up for Santa Claus to give their child a call. They also have birthday and Easter Bunny and everything. But it's a really awesome app. We helped them when they were going from web to mobile, so they did need a little bit of help getting over that hurdle. And they decided to use our NativeScript mobile application tool for their mobile app. What they really needed help with was some performance enhancements. So they did use some of our mentoring for that, and then some code review as well to make sure there weren't any glitches in the code, no bugs, anything like that. And we do offer ongoing support for them. So that any issues that they come up with, you can imagine during Christmas time, their performance needs to be spot on because there are so many people visiting their site and their app at that time. So they really wanted to make sure they had a solid app here. So with that, I am going to introduce Richard. You'll hear me asking Richard the questions, and Richard is happy to help anyone that needs help as well. So with that, we will get started with that interview.
Thank you again, Richard, for joining us. We just wanted to ask you a few questions and get a little bit more details on your project. The first question is to tell me a little bit more about yourself and what kind of role you have within U Group and how you work with the team.
So I'm the lead front-end developer now. Originally, when I started, I was just doing the mobile. They had originally been outsourcing it to Belarus. But at about early 2017, late 2016, at the end of that Christmas season for 2016, we decided we wanted to have more code sharing. It was always, now that I was in-house instead of outsourcing it to an outsourced group, because they'd done it different places, different years, so the code was kind of all over the place. So they decided they wanted to rewrite it, and they wanted to use as much code sharing as possible. Now, our front end had originally been written in Angular 1, there was a version of Angular 1 where you could start to move it toward Angular 2, so it was written that way. But we decided that we were definitely always going to do Angular on the web. So we wanted to see if we could do more code sharing even between the web and mobile apps. We definitely wanted to do code sharing on the mobile apps, so we looked at things like Xamarin, of course, and some of the other things out there. But then we also wanted to look at if we could even then share between web and mobile, not just in the typical sort of Ionic web view way, but like, more advanced, and it's a little bit more limited in what you can do in an Ionic view. So the thing they found, of course, was, if you have a React website and you want to make it work with the mobile, of course, you use React Native. But since we were an Angular app, we needed something that would work with Angular. So that was always the main goal, is that our website was always going to be Angular 2+. So when we found native scripts that allowed code sharing with Angular and the mobile apps, that way we could get three-way cross-platform sharing. That's why we decided to go with native scripts. But at about the same time, so I was still relatively new to web on that, but soon after that there was some changes of personnel here, and the web developer left, and so we then ended up bringing on some contractors for the web, and so as the only real front-end developer, even though I wasn't used to web quite yet, I was still getting used to NativeScript, TypeScript, all that. I pretty much took over that lead role over that too, so I essentially became a web developer too at that point. And NativeScript, actually, I'd never really had much interest in web development. I'd never really dabbled there. I always preferred the mobile, but NativeScript allowed me kind of as a gateway into the web world without just jumping straight into web. Of course, I was usually leading people who were doing the web development to it. I was just checking to make sure that it met with the requirements. So that was kind of how I moved into both the mobile and the web in this case. So yeah, that's, I guess, kind of my role and how it's evolved since I've been here. So that was 2017, and yeah, we rewrote the app at that point using NativeScript and Angular 2+.
Can you tell me a little bit about your business as well and what UGroup does?
So UGroup Media main product is Portable North Pole. It's a app that allows the parent or even like another adult the child knows to create a personalized Christmas video from Santa for the child. So, we have an actor who plays Santa. He's actually a full-time actor who plays Santa in a park in Finland, up there above the Arctic Circle. So the guy knows Santa. That's his day-to-day job. So we have him, we film him, and then what we do is we make it so that the videos can be personalized. We have French, English, Spanish, and Italian. So the videos, he'll say the child's name. Usually you can also, depending on which scenario it goes with, he'll mention something about the child. He'll show a picture of the child that the adult has uploaded, or even a video in some cases. So that's the main gist of that. But we also have some phone calls, so you can actually schedule a phone call to be made to a real phone, so that Santa will call the child and talk to the child and mention their name and talk to them. And usually, too, just like Santa always is, of course, the goal with Santa has always been to like get children to be on better behavior. The video scenarios, usually there's kind of a plot to them. Of course, they're videos. The calls will usually be more there's different ones. There's a happy birthday call. There's things like Santa encouraging the child because maybe he's having a rough time, or telling the child, oh, I heard you've been having some behavioral troubles, try better, and hopefully you'll be on my nice list. And that's the other thing we have, is that on the premium videos, you'll usually mark if the child has been naughty, nice, or needs improvement type thing. So that way you can kind of encourage the child to be on better behavior. And recently we introduced a new scenario. It's kind of a multimedia scenario. What it will be is the video will start, we call it the verdict update internally. I'll have to check exactly what it's called. But essentially, the video will start and Santa will say, oh, he'll say, let's see how your behavior is. Like, oh, I got the result. I'm going to call you now. And so then what will actually happen is it will trigger a phone call. You'll see the video continue to play, and then Santa will talk on the phone to the child. And then also additionally, we have a feature where as the child is watching the videos, the parent can enable it to record, so that way the parent then has a video and with a picture-in-picture of the original video of the child using it. So that's the main thing, is it's these personalized sort of messages and videos and interactions with Santa Claus, talking to the child, talking about the child and whatnot.
I know you mentioned what the problem was that you were facing. You have as much of code reuse between web and mobile. Was that the only challenge where you were facing when building the app, or was there something else that you were trying to tackle? And obviously, how did we help you resolve that?
Yeah, so like I said, it's a small team because we are in fact a year-round company. But of course, because it's Christmas oriented and we're doing different phases, because of course we do our own production, we make the videos, we edit them, and all that. So the company itself, regular employees, maybe a little bit bigger now, but I think it's still probably under 20. But then from year to year, there's some guys who actually have probably been coming back year after year the longest. So yeah, we have a very small team, and sometimes we can ramp up and we can bring on other developers for different things. But of course, we had to have a setup where, like I said, whether you're a web developer or a mobile developer, kind of you needed to have a lead developer who, if we're having problems on the mobile, I have to be able to jump onto the mobile. If we're having problems on the web, I have to be able to jump onto the web. We now have, of course, a few more in-house developers, but that's the thing, is to kind of allow us to kind of, even though people have their different specialities and whatnot, they can move between, the different parts of the app for the most part. If something needs to be changed on one part of the app and then also on the web, you can usually right now assign that to somebody whose background might be more mobile or more web. So that was the main advantage, is keeping our team, since it's small, being able to kind of work in different parts of the app and still have insight into different parts of the app. And of course, especially for mobile, a lot of people maybe have Java experience, but like when it comes to, of course, Apple and Objective-C and Swift, it doesn't really quite look like any other language. So even if the back-end developers have questions or something, they can kind of see, and they're usually somewhat familiar with JavaScript, whereas of course looking at Swift or Objective-C is a bit more difficult. So yeah, it allows us, our team, to kind of be small, but then also be across multiple platforms. So that was the original goal. And then, yeah, like I said, we had some staffing changes in early to mid 2017. So we'd had some difficulty, of course, shifting through some different contractors at some point. And we had brought on, with a recommendation from Progress, Nathan Walker from NStudio, kind of help consult us on it, since he's a long-time community expert on the NativeScript framework. So he'd been working closely with us throughout 2017. We ran into some difficulties, to say something. Like I said, it's not entirely, wasn't just NativeScript, it was, some shifts in personnel, some other things like that. So toward the close of 2017, the app was not as stable and performant as we would have liked it. And it was a bit difficult because some parts of it maybe were the code, our own internal code, but there were certain parts of it where I think, of course, like most of the year, right, we still get a few hundred or thousand users per day, right, kids coming on to watch the videos, or we also have a birthday video that the parent can create, of course, any time of the year for the child. But, of course, it's a very lopsided sort of usage from our users. A few hundred, maybe a few thousand users in the middle of July, whereas, Christmas Eve, we're talking millions of users within a single 24-hour period. And then it drops straight off after that, of course, once Christmas is over. So we have to be able to move very, very quickly because, if you have a crash that, say, is happening to 0.1% of people, right, so 1 in 1,000, if you only have 1,000 users, that's only one person crashing. If you have, 1 million users, that's 10,000 people, or it's quite so just little crashes like that. Once you magnify that, and so we have to very quickly see that crash is becoming more and more problematic, and quickly adapt to it and release builds. And of course, there's sort of a delay, especially when dealing with iOS, with releasing to the store. With web or Android, right? You have especially with web, right? You just redeploy the website. The next time the person hits it, it'll be fine. Android, of course, there's a delay of them actually updating the app. And of course, iOS is the update of the app and the approval process. So being able to move quickly on those things is sort of a problem. Yeah, so there was some question as to, could NativeScript be stable enough for what we need for it, and could it be performant enough, of course, too? Because that's why we never even looked at Ionic and some of these other, like, WebView things, because we want near native performance. It doesn't have to be true, and even native performance, right? Like when people ask me, like, oh, can NativeScript be as fast as mobile? It's like, well, usually, sometimes mobile isn't even as fast. Pure native mobile isn't even as fast as it could be. So you can easily make a NativeScript app that's faster than a mobile app if the mobile app wasn't done.
Sounds great. This sounds really, really interesting. If you're to summarize what do you think are the 2 or 3 things that made a difference in working with the team? I know you mentioned that there was a lot of video calls or even regular calls and help from the core team, from the professional services partner, but in general, like what were the 3 things that, in your opinion, stood out in your collaboration with the team that made a difference and made that a successful project?
Yeah, no, I think to a certain extent, they were very good about adapting to sort of, like I said, what our needs were at different phases of the year, and even to sort of adapting to my own kind of preferences about how I like to solve problems. Because in many ways, I actually do like to solve a problem myself if I can, and I'm always happy to submit a PR or to kind of dig into it. But sometimes, of course, it's a large code base, there's lots of pieces, and kind of trying to identify what those pieces are and kind of how they all fit together. Sometimes maybe they didn't have immediate solutions to my problems, but they at least helped me work through my own custom solutions, at least for the short term, which was very important, being able to at least solve it in a way that maybe wasn't 100% the best way for the framework at the time, but to at least help assist me in finding a solution that I could at least use, of course, like I said, in November, in December, when, stability and performance of the app is critical to our company. But yeah, no, I think the main thing, is that the professional services, like I said, like Nick Eliev, Nick Sonev, they were very good about, even on their side, testing the issues and coming up with solutions and addressing those with the developers, so that oftentimes we wouldn't even need to escalate it to the developers. Oftentimes they had solutions, and then they would promptly, escalate it if they didn't have a solution on their side. The biggest advantage is that they were adaptive to like I said, the needs of the company and to the way with Nathan Walker and with some of the other in-studio guys do have a bit more of an advanced knowledge, I think, of native scripts than probably most teams who get the support contract. And so in that way, usually it's not just so much a question of how does this work. We usually sort of know how it works. It's usually more of an edge case that we're specifically hitting, and especially an edge case of a combination of factors. In isolation wouldn't be an issue, but of course in a more complex, full-featured app could cause an issue. And so they were adaptive to kind of providing us a much higher level support due to our kind of higher level usage and ability with the framework.
Awesome. And we thank Richard so much for sharing his story, and hopefully that helped you get a little sense of what we do offer and how our team works with the teams at different companies. So I just wanted to reiterate everything that we went over today. So we went over a lot of different offerings. I know it was a lot of information to take in, so feel free to ask any questions about any of our offerings and maybe how they differ, some examples, anything like that. Then we went over how it all works, so how the contracts are set up, how we determine who's going to work on the project, things like that. And then we heard our customer testimonial from U Group Media. And again, we thank Richard Smith from U Group Media for adding that in. And hopefully maybe you have something fun for your kid's birthday or Christmas this year that you can use. So definitely check out their app. So we do have a couple more questions. So I'll bring Stefan back in, let him ask a couple more poll questions, and then we can get to our actual questions. So feel free to send anything in. We're happy to answer any questions or even get back to you if we don't have an answer on the spot. So Stefan?
Thanks, Julie. Actually, we do have several questions lined up, and we'll get right to those. I'm organizing them right now, and as we're doing that, being a development company, and we work with a lot of development teams worldwide. We're always kind of curious about the state of affairs, if you will, at different organizations. So we just have a couple of really short questions. We're hoping that you can help us just get an understanding of where you are, when your organization, where your development team is with those, and then we'll proceed right to the questions. So the first one that we have is with regards to the collaboration between designers and developers. I think we see a lot of our customers come and say that they experience a lot of gaps with the designers working in one system, developers working in another. So we wanted to understand within your own organizations, is that process Of course, assuming you have UX designers on staff, or if you have a company that you work with, are you experiencing any issues with that iteration? Is that process smooth? A quick yes or no, or maybe unsure if you're not sure about the question, could really help us to understand if that's something that you observe within your organizations. Oftentimes, what we hear is that actually designers send something either pixel perfect or maybe in a PDF format, and then developers are kind of struggling to reproduce. It seems to be a big pain point for a lot of organizations. So, trying to, as we speak to development teams, and we have you on this webinar, it will be really helpful to understand if that's something that you experience as well. So I think we're getting the questions in. So I think we can proceed to the answers. I guess we can proceed to the next question. And this is mostly around the automated testing piece of it. I think we see a lot of organizations, they're still running into manual testing or have went into coded automated testing, which can be labor consuming. So we also see a lot of companies, and this is very, very valid, which a lot of companies are no longer, that at some point were not considering themselves technology companies, now come back and say we are a technology company. Technology is at the core of what we do. So they start from the basics. So just based on the audience that we have, is your organization doing any automated testing? Are you happy with the results? No or not. We're just trying to get a state of affairs of where people are with regards to automated testing as we plan our roadmaps and everything. All right, we'll give it another few seconds, and then we'll move to the last question. And then, Julie, I have 6-7 questions lined up for you. So hopefully we can address them all, and I see others are flowing in as well as we as we answer those. So,
and I do have one last thing to mention before we jump into the questions as well.
So actually, maybe as people are answering, maybe you can mention it, and then we'll proceed to the last question.
For sure. So one thing I did forget to mention at the beginning is all those offerings that we have, they are available for our DevTools products, Kendo, testing products, our Test Studio, and NativeScript, which is our mobile app development tool. So just know that we do offer everything for all of those tools.
And I know there was a question related to that, so
perfect.
I'll maybe as you're covering that, maybe we can tackle that. I think the question is it only our technologies, or does our professional services cover non-Telerik or non-Progress related technology?
Definitely, that's a great question, and I know I sort of answered that in training, but every other offering that we have, it can involve other tools as well. There's no problem there. We're happy to help with anything, whether it's Microsoft or I think I mentioned React, Vue, anything like that. We're happy to help.
Yeah, so generic frameworks, maybe other tool sets. We do have a wide skill set that we can apply. So let's proceed to the last question and go into the Q&A. And again, this is purely in line with also the QA process and the overall state of agile development. We still see a lot of people doing waterfall development. So at this point, does the speed of your QA process hold you back from going agile or delivering your projects on time? Is that something that is in the way of going to agile or not? I guess that's what we're trying to understand. And we'll give this question another few seconds for you to chime in, and then we're happy to proceed to the Q&A session. Actually, as people are chiming in, I think we can probably proceed now to the questions.
Sure.
Julie, I think you covered one of them, whether we cover other products or other technologies. And again, it doesn't have to be Progress or Telerik related. We work with various technologies alongside the development lifecycle. So it could be in the planning phase, in the design, development, automation, even with regards to agile methodology in itself. So we're happy to help any transition from waterfall to agile methodology, and we've done that on multiple occasions to different teams. So first question, Julie, for you, or second, I guess. What are the rates and the ranges of rates for, I think the question is just with regards to staff augmentation, but I think that probably is valid for any other services that we offer. So how are the rates determined, and what are those ranges?
Definitely. So rates are determined on a per project basis. So the length of the project, the resource that's needed, what type of skills are needed for the project, that all goes into account when we determine price. Our range for pricing is typically 150 US dollars per hour to 215 US dollars per hour. For something with staff augmentation, that's obviously a longer term project, and we'd be happy to discuss rates with you on a specific project. So please feel free to reach out and I can answer any questions you have on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Another question that came in is, do we offer support for businesses who do not currently use any of our products? And I guess maybe you can give examples with similar cases. Do we offer that kind of services to organizations that are not customers?
Definitely. We're happy to work with you even if you aren't a customer. A lot of times we'll work with people before they even purchase our products. They do a trial. They think the tool is going to work for them, but they want to make sure it meets all their needs prior. So they'll work with our team sometimes to build something out, build a POC or something, make sure it meets their needs, and then if they want to buy our product, great. If they want to keep with what they're doing, that's totally fine as well. And we're happy to help any customers. The good thing is we used to have some internal developers, and we have a bunch of partners that we work with now that are very near and dear to us. We're very selective about who we work with. And they have stacked benches of developers who have many, many different skill sets to offer. So we're happy to find the right person for the right project. I hope that helps.
Okay. I think that helps. I think we'll see probably any additional questions along the way. But another question that came in was if our development resources are available to come in on premise, or do they only work remotely, or is a hybrid model available?
Sure. So I would say about 90% of our projects are remote, and we're happy to come on site. There just are some travel and expense costs with that. For something like a staff augmentation or a longer term project, what we typically do is maybe the first or second week of the project, we have the team meet on site. On site can be at one of our offices or one of your offices. That's no problem. And then we can get everyone to know each other face to face. It's a lot easier to work together that way. And then again, for something like a staff augmentation, every few months or so, you might have a meeting on site to meet up with each other. But yeah, there's no problem. We can do on site or remote.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, another question we got is, does your team have a lot of experience with transitioning from Angular 1.0 to Angular 2.0? As we know, it's a complete migration that one needs to do from one to the other. So do we have any projects in that area? Have we done anything along that?
We definitely have. That has been something that's come up a lot. We have no problem migrating someone from Angular 1 to Angular 2, the new Angular. I don't see any issues with that at all. That's definitely something we've come across, to keep the answer short.
Excellent. Great. And what about staff augmentation resources in the Chicago suburb area?
We don't have anyone specifically in Chicago, but we do have teams in the U.S., so that should be easy enough to. They would be in the same time zone as Chicago, or they could easily travel on site if needed.
Got it. Okay. What about experience with TDD test-driven development and mobbing? Do we have resource in with such skill sets or experience in that area?
Yes. I am not as familiar with that, so I can definitely look into that and get back to you. If you want to send me an email or
I can speak from my experience
Sure.
working with some of our one of our partners is that actually they're experts in test automation and actually with the test-driven development concept, and I'm pretty sure we do, but I think we can follow up personally after to make sure that's really the case. And then another question is, do we have any developers with extensive knowledge in BI and visualizations tools like Microsoft BI, Splunk, Tableau?
Definitely. That is definitely something we offer. We get those questions a lot, and I know that we've worked on multiple projects similar. So that's a definite yes.
Awesome. And then I have another question that I'm not sure if you would be able to address right now. Maybe it's something we need to follow up after. But it's if we have any customers who are using Kendo UI in conjunction with Identity Server, which is the security protocol framework for .NET.
Nothing off the top of my head that I can think of, but I'm happy to reach out to the team and see if they have completed a project like that before, and we can get back to you on that for sure.
Okay. And then the another question that came in is how quickly can the staff be augmented? How quickly are we able to help with that?
Yeah, definitely. So typically we can do about a week turnaround. As I mentioned, we have a pretty extensive bench, so we can find the right person for the project relatively quickly most of the time, unless it's a specific tool set that's needed or something of that nature. But I have not run into that issue at all. We can usually get things up and running within a week's time, assuming all paperwork and everything goes smoothly.
I think yeah, that's a really valid point. I think typically the engagement from partners and the scoping out the work and allocating resources happens quickly. What we find sometimes takes a lot of time, depending on the size of the customers we work with. Is there may be legal paperwork that needs to be reviewed, and availability of legal teams at various organizations differs. So I think this is what
And I
typically could delay.
I can mention we did have a customer just in the past month that had a deadline Friday of the following week, and we got the paperwork turned around in a couple days and had their project delivered to them by the following Friday. So we completed the whole project and the paperwork and everything in about 10 days with the weekend in there. So we can definitely do that.
Awesome. This is really good to hear. Now we have another question, which is a little lengthier one, so it's more of a use case, and happy to address it. I've worked with the Telerik controls within the last company I was. We're doing .NET development. I'm another company, and they're doing a rewrite of their software. I would like to have similar results using Kendo UI, but I'm not sure how to present that to people that would make the decision. Do you have a presentation for Angular using Kendo with a Java backbone, looking to allow the owner, and all I can find online is for anything I can find online is for .NET. Actually, Brian will follow up with you, and then I'll have someone from our customer service team reach out and see what we have and work with our sales engineers if they can help with some support for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and on our end, we do have a bunch of before and afters that I can send over. I'm not sure if we do have that specific skill set, but that definitely is something that you can show, a before and an after using Kendo tools and the professional services team.
Excellent. So another question that came in is, do we have resources that can help with moving our applications from on-prem deployment to a cloud services solution such as AWS and Azure?
Definitely. We were just working on a project that did something very similar, so that's definitely something we can do.
Excellent. Thank you. So actually, we got a question on an answer to one of the other questions that we couldn't answer, and it is that one of our customers is using Kendo UI with Identity Server.
Oh, perfect.
So I think we will follow up with that directly, but I think it's good to know.
Thank you to whoever helped answer that question.
Yes, and then another question that came in is, do we have experience working with railroads, transportation, or logistics companies?
We do. We definitely have. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but I know that I have worked on projects similar in the past, for sure. And again, we can follow up with specific examples.
Yeah, I think it would be good to set up a call just to discuss what kind of project it is, because I think depending on it could be for like a tracking software, which is tracking shipments. I know we've done projects like that. I don't know if that's necessarily the project that is related. Maybe it could be something different, but we've had professional engagements where we had to build or help update an existing tracking software for shipments and work with transitioning from a web to a mobile application. We have a web-based product that is very tightly coupled to Internet Explorer and COM Plus and VBScript. Do you have any experience to transition to Angular from this environment? There are no tools to convert VBScript to TypeScript. Right? This would be a full rewrite. Julie, I don't know if you can address. If not, I can give it a try.
Yeah, so it would be a full rewrite, most likely. We have transitioned customers from VBScript. Well, I'm sure we can transition that as well. I don't see any issues with that, but Stefan, I'll let you throw in there too.
I would imagine it's a rewrite.
Yes.
I haven't seen anything to the contrary, but again, this probably would be better discussed with some of our more technical colleagues. So we'll get back to that, and we'll reach out either to set up an additional call to discuss, or just provide you a quick answer based if it's negative. Do you have resources? Do your resources have ability in working with a scaled agile framework?
That is a definite yes. We'd be happy to provide examples. I'm keeping it
sweet.
short, but we'll.
So I think we can reach out to Patricia and we can discuss further. So another question that came in is with regards to fixed pricing. So do we have any projects where we determine the scope and it's one flat fixed fee?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually had a customer recently that said, "This is my budget. This is what I have. This is what I'd like to do. Let's try and work together." So we figured out, what were the top things that he wanted to do versus it was more of like a need versus a want. So we found the needs first, focused on those first, and then switched over into the wants with the extra time that we had. So we can fix a budget or, the amount of hours, whatever it is, we're happy to work with you on that.
Okay, thank you. Another question that came in. We currently have a UI UX issue with one of our core.NET WinForms products, specifically around the high DPI monitors. All the Telerik controls have scaling issues except for traditional WinForms controls. I think that in itself is something we should look into. Wondering if this is something you can help with. We're also looking into modernizing our app. Lastly, do you have any team working in Sydney, Australia?
Definitely, we can help you with both of those issues. That's no problem at all. That's something we do every day, and would be happy to do so. I don't believe we have anyone directly in Sydney, but we have people close enough that could work in the time zones and get that figured out, no problem. So happy to reach out.
We also have an office in Melbourne, and actually one of our developer evangelists, he's in Sydney, I believe. He's based out of Sydney, so I think we can probably work with him and see if this is also something that we can help with, especially on the scaling issues with our controls. I think we definitely want to research this regardless of the use case. So we'll get in touch with you about that for sure.
And as you heard in the customer recording too, they obviously had a huge scaling project that we worked on. So that was a good example for you.
Okay. So another question that came in is if we have any hardware engineer resources with experience with hardware and software integration.
Yes, we'd need a bit more detail about what the actual tools you're using are, but I would say we most likely have someone with that experience.
Excellent. Okay. So one question that came in, what kind of paperwork typically is needed to get started on a project?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a letter of engagement, which is for smaller engagements up to 100 hours. And it's a one-page sheet that is, depending on your legal department, can easily be signed off on. And for larger projects or companies that require it, we have an SOW MSA. So I think those are pretty typical for professional services engagement. So it's a master services agreement and a statement of work. And then if a customer requires an NDA as well, most of that's covered in the MSA, but sometimes we require an NDA as well.
Thank you. And then there was a question whether the webinar is recorded and accessible later, and I can cover that. Yes, it is. And it will be, and actually I was going to mention that at the end, but it will be available within a few days for you to view, and we'll send it to everybody that registered for the webinar. Another question that just came in: how are customers kept in the loop with projects? What is your process? How does it work?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And also, how do you keep track of the consultants' hours?
Sure. So we use a system called EasyTrack, and the consultant logs in every Monday before 9 a.m. Eastern and logs their hours for the previous week. So all the hours are kept in there. Once the consultant hits submit on those hours, an email automatically goes out to the customer asking them for approval. So that's kind of how that works. And then typically a consultant will have multiple meetings a week with the consultant. So you'll be kept up to speed on that. And then some of our customers have requirements of, writing down everything that they complete that week, what the problems they're facing, what they're working towards next week, and we can cover that as well. That's absolutely no problem. So we definitely are here just to meet the customer's needs, whatever you want to focus on. Some of our projects have Scrum meetings every morning for 10 minutes before they get their day started. It's whatever works best for you.
Thanks, Julie. One question that I missed that came in a lot earlier that I now uncovered was what is the price for our mentoring? And I think you covered it. Kind of, it really depends. But the question is also, is it included in the subscription? And by subscription, I assume the attendee means if you're a UI component or whatever product that you have from Progress/Telerik, is that included?
So it's not included. It's not part of the licensing. It would be an additional fee on top of the license. But again, the mentoring is a good way to just get started with 10 hours and understand how our team works. And if you need additional help after that, we're happy to step in again. We have customers that buy multiple rounds of 10 or 20 hours. They get started and then they can't stop. So it's definitely something that, if that's what you're looking for, I would recommend.
And I'll build on that. Actually, what we did is, especially with all the paid Telerik licenses, you get access to our Telerik virtual classroom recordings, which are covering both our components, but as well as various topics such as popular JavaScript frameworks and so on. There's a lot of insight that you can get from there. Also, you have access to support. So if you have any how-to type of questions, I think we might be able to help with those. If it's more of a, hey, I need you to show me how to do something else, I think this is where I think we'll cross the line and go into more of a professional services realm.
Yeah, so mentoring is definitely like the step further than support. So support can only go so far in their answers sometimes. And mentoring, you can screen share, you can show what the issue is, you can ask any questions you have. So that's kind of where you should think about mentoring.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Other questions that came in is customizations for our Can-Do controls that are hourly rate or project-based pricing.
It can be either. So, of course, both ways we kind of have an hourly rate, but we could do like a fixed cost model. So, we want this done. This is how many hours it'll take. This is the price of it. That's what we're going to give you. So it'll always be an hourly rate, but we can either put a maximum on there. We can say we'll complete the whole thing in this amount of hours. There's some different options that we can do there.
And just related to that is, I know you mentioned that we've had projects where consultants had to work on the weekends, maybe even evenings. What is the impact on the rate should that happen?
Yeah, so typically we don't go into, or I should say most often we don't go into an overtime rate. If the consultant agrees that they don't mind working nights and weekends, that's totally fine. We had a customer recently that had like a month time frame to finish their mobile app, and the consultant worked tirelessly to get that app completed, and that was totally fine with him. We didn't charge overtime, so I wouldn't be worried about that.
Excellent. And since we only have a minute, there are two more questions that I will attempt to address. And then if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I think, Julie, I don't know if you have your contact details somewhere on the slides. If not, we will be reaching out very shortly to just send you the recording. Feel free to reply, and then we'll get in touch and discuss any other questions you may have. But the last two questions that I can address before we part ways for today, are there any possibilities to get the direct contact number instead of the support ticketing system to ask about the support queries? Absolutely. We do have what we call phone assistance, that you have a direct number that you can speak directly to our support engineers. That does come only with the DevCraft Ultimate offering. So if you do have that, then you can get that. Also, there's an option for you to buy a priority support with some of the individual products as well. So as long as you have access to that, then you can certainly speak to our support engineers. With regards to the other question, which is whether the Telerik platform or any other product is required to use our professional services, I imagine this is actually not required. As I said, as I think Julie mentioned as well, is you can, or you may or may not be a customer of ours. We are happy to help with any professional services engagement. Obviously, we are most of the projects we do are actually related to our own technology or projects that involve our technology, but that's not necessarily the only scenario. So with that, thank you everyone for attending. Julie, I appreciate the time in putting this together. I don't know if you have any closing remarks, but thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll be following up in the next few days with the recording.
Definitely. Thank you everyone so much for joining. If you do reply to the webinar link, I should get the email, and if not, it will be sent to me. And if you have any questions, my email is just J as in Julie with my last name at progress.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone. Have a good rest of the day, night, or evening, depending on where you are.